Okay, we're going to talk about part 2, the semester review part 2. It's chapter 2. All this should be in your composition notebook under chapter 2. These notes should be from yesterday. We took chapter 1 notes yesterday, part 1 notes yesterday. Here's part 2. The first thing we're doing is finding slope if we're given 2 points. The formula you need to remember from that is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, that's the slope formula. The letter that we use, the variable that we use to describe slope is m. I don't know why they picked it, but they did. Okay, so here's point 1, here's point 2. This is my x1, this is my y1, this is my x2, this is my y2. So I'm just going to plug in y2 minus y1. So y2 is negative 8 minus y1 is 4 over x2, which is 3, minus an x1, which is a negative 1. The hardest thing here is keeping your negatives and positives in line. A negative 8 minus 4 is a negative 12. And negative 3 minus a negative 1, when you subtract a negative, you get to add the opposite. So that's a positive 4. And then you want to reduce it if you can. What is negative 12 over 4? That reduces to a negative 3. So here our slope is negative 3. That's what your slope is. Try this one on your own. Come back to it. So here we have x1, y1, x2, y2. We're doing y2 minus y1, so 5 minus 3 over 2 minus a negative 4. 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 minus a negative 4 is 6. How do you reduce that? If you can reduce it, you want to. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 goes into 6 3 times. So our slope in this case is 1/3. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is write equations of a line. If they give us the slope and a point, we're going to use point slope form. Okay, we learned that that's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. You're plugging in numbers for y1, for m, and for x1. This x and this y stay the same. They don't change. So here's your slope. That's your m. Here's your x1. Here's your y1. So you're just plugging in numbers. So here we get y minus y1, so a negative 3, equals our slope, negative 2 over 5 times x minus x1, which is 5. I don't know why I wrote 3 there. It's a 5. Watch out. Okay. From here, we're going to distribute. Okay. Anytime you subtract a negative, you can change it to adding a positive. So this is going to be y plus 3 equals a negative 2/5 times x is negative 2/5 x. Negative 2/5 times a negative 5 is going to be a positive 2. And if you don't know how to multiply fractions, you now have calculators. You could do it in your calculator. You could do a negative 2 over 5 times a negative 5, and you'll see that that gives us 2. So that's how I got 2 right there. From here, you got to get the y by itself. So we subtract 3, subtract 3. Here we have y equals a negative 2/5 over 2/5 x. Negative or positive 2 minus 3 is negative 1. So that's our equation of our line. Okay. Remember that this number in front of x is your slope. This number at the end is the y-intercept. If you were to graph that line, you would start here and you do your slope. You'd go down 2 and to the right 5, down 2 to the right 5, and you get a line out of that. And it would go through this point and it would have that slope. Okay. If you're given 2 points and you're not given the slope, you have to find the slope first. So we have to use what we did up here, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So, but on this one, we're going to change this to a negative 2. Because I made a mistake. So change this point to negative 2, and then we'll start from here. So here's x1, y1, x2, y2. We're going to find the slope. So we're doing y2 minus y1, so 10 minus a negative 5. Negative 2 minus a negative 8. You would get to add the opposite, 10 plus 5. 15 Negative 2 plus 8 is 6. You simplify that. How many times does 15, or 3 goes into 15 5 times, 3 goes into 6 2 times, so we have 5 over 2. Okay, from there, that's your slope, and then we can choose one point. We could choose this point if we wanted to. We're going to plug it into the point slope form. Okay, so I have y minus y1, which is the negative 5, equals my slope 5 over 2 times x minus x1, which is a negative 8. Anytime you subtract a negative, you can change it to a positive. So I'm going to change both of those to a positive, and I'm going to distribute. I have y plus 5 equals 5 over 2 times x is 5 over 2x. 5 over 2 times 8 is going to be a positive 20. Here, if you didn't know that, you could plug it in again. You could do 5 over 2 times 8. Gives us a positive 20. Okay, so I add plus 20 here. 5 over 2 times 8 is 20. Subtract 5, subtract 5. I get y equals 5 over 2x. 20 minus 5 is a positive 15. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is graphing linear inequalities. A linear inequality, you want to get it into a y equals form so you can know the slope and the y-intercept and graph it. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get, anytime you're graphing something, you want to get the y by itself. Okay, so you have to move this 2x to the other side, and we have to move the 3 to the other side. Okay, how are you going to move that 2x? Since we're removing the whole thing, we're going to subtract 2x from both sides. Okay, so we have 3y is greater than, and I like to write my x's before my other numbers. You can't combine those because they're not like terms, so we have negative 2x plus 6. How to get rid of the 3? We want the y all the way by itself, so we want to get rid of the 3. We want to divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so we're left with 1y is greater than negative 2 over 3x. You can just pop that 3 underneath the 2. And then 6 divided by 3 is a positive 2. Okay, so now we're going to graph this. So you start with your y-intercept. We're going to start at 2, so go up to 2. And then we're going to go, the slope is whatever's in front of x, and negative 2 over 3. Slope is always rise over run, so we're going to rise negative 2, and we're going to run 3. So that means down 2, 1, 2, and run a positive 3 means to the right 1, 2, 3. Down 2, to the right 3, down 2, to the right 3. If you have greater than or less than signs and they don't have equal to signs, that's going to be a dotted line. If they have equal to signs, it's going to be solid. Okay. If it's a greater than sign, so it can be greater than, or equal to, we're going to shade above. And if it's less than or equal to, we're going to shade below. Those are your shorthand notes. So here, since I don't have an equal to sign, it's going to be a dotted line. I'm going to draw this dotted line there. And then since it's a greater than sign, we're going to shade above that line. So we're shading up here. Okay, let's try another one. Here, we got to get the y by itself. So we want to move the 3x over, and then we want to move this 1/2 over. Okay, I'm going to subtract 3x, subtract 3x. So I get 1/2 y is less than or equal to a negative 3x plus 2. I like to write my x's in front because it keeps it in order. How do you get rid of a 1/2? Okay, if it's a fraction, you can multiply by the reciprocal, so we can multiply everything by 2 over 1, which is the same as just a 2. So 2 times 1/2 is 1, so those will cancel each other out. So we'll be left with 1y. We want to multiply this whole thing over by 2 over 1 or just 2. Okay, so y is less than or equal to a negative 3 times 2 is a negative 6. X, a 2 times a positive 2 is a positive 4. So we're going to graph this one. We're going to go up to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's your y-intercept, so you go up to 4. Then our slope is this negative 6. If it's a whole number, you can always put it over 1, and negative 6 over 1. So that means we're going down 6 into the right 1. 5, 6 into the right 1, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into the right 1. After you get some of those plotted, we're going to say what kind of line do we need? Since it has the equal to sign, we're going to draw a solid line so we can connect the dots like a normal line. Okay, and then we got to say since it's a less than sign, we're going to shade below, okay, and below this line is this way. Okay, that's inequalities. This last one, find each value. You can scribble this part out right there. Find each value of f of x is equal to x squared plus 3, and g of x is equal to 4x minus 2. If you're supposed to find the value of f of negative 2, that means you're taking negative 2 and you're going to plug it in for x. So I'm going to just do negative 2 squared plus 3. Negative 2 squared is 4, plus 3 is 7. So I just found that f of negative 2 is 7. That's all you do. The next one is 5. Here, g of 5, that means I take the g function and I'm going to plug in 5 for x. So I'll have 4 times 5, and then minus 2. 4 times 5 is 20, minus 2 is 18. So I just found that g of 5 is going to be equal to 18. The last one is kind of weird. It has a 3x and negative 3x, which just means if it's in the parentheses, that's what we're plugging in for x. So I'm going to have 4, and then instead of x, I'm plugging in what's ever in the parentheses. So I have a negative 3x in my parentheses instead of just an x. And then I'm going to have that minus 2. What is 4 times negative 3? It's a negative 12x. Then I have this minus 2. Over here we could combine 20 and negative 2 because they were like terms. They were constants. Here I have negative 12x and 2. I can't combine them, so that's my answer. G of negative 3x is equal to negative 12x minus 2. Okay. That's all the notes for part 2. Part 3 is pretty long, so if you guys are not done with part 1 and part 2 on the assignment, that means you want to be done with problems 1 through 23 by tomorrow, because tomorrow the notes are going to take a while and the work is going to take a while tomorrow. Just a heads up. Have fun.